Near the famous plains of Nazca in Peru, in the province of Ica, farmer Basilia Ushuaia claimed to have discovered ancient carved stones portraying dinosaurs and humans together. A local physician, convinced they were authentic, he bought thousands from the farmer and even opened up a museum with them. Now, young Earth creationists often use these as proof that humans and dinosaurs did coexist together. But in his later years, it is said that the farmer, Basilio, confessed to creating the stones himself. Do you know what the Ica stones are, and do you think they're real? If so, give us a call, because the show is starting right now. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Kelley Laughlin, and this is the live call-in show where we ask you every single week at Fridays at 7 p.m. what you believe and why you believe it. And we would like to have you call us right now at 1-512-991-9242, or you can use your computer at tiny.cc/call-TW. Truth Wanted is a product of the atheist community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And my very special guest today, I gotta say I'm a little intimidated, is Jim Barrows. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Not too bad. How you doing? Nothing to be intimidated about. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
I often talk about having imposter syndrome, and I always say that one of the the worst imposter syndrome episode of my life was when I sat between you and Forrest Falcai. So.
No, you were not an imposter then. You're not an imposter now. Although you might be an impasta. I don't know.
There you go. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Before we get started doing anything else, though, I want to look at last week's result of We Want the Truth, or our WWTT segment. And last week we asked, what is your unpopular opinion? And here are our three top favorite answers. Chuck Gay Doss 5387, his unpopular opinion is men should be allowed to have business meetings without tying hideous rags around their necks, which is kind of funny in my case, I guess.
Yeah, well, what are those little strawberries with cream on them, or on both sides?
I have footballs.
Oh, okay.
It's that weekend.
I don't play golf, so I wouldn't recognize it.
And number two, Nietzsche's Code says, my unpopular opinion is that Truth Wanted is the best show of the ACA. And honestly, that's a popular opinion on my account. I love this show. So I have said for years, this is the best show at the ACA. And I think everybody should agree with me.
Yeah, it is a most excellent show. It's the only one where we deal with every topic under the sun, not just religion. So
right.
It's the most wide-ranging. Yeah. It can be the most fun because, sometimes it gets kind of boring going over the same 5 stupid arguments for God. Yeah. So now we get to go find out what other people believe, and maybe somebody will prove the supernatural exists today.
That would be awesome if we did that today.
Yeah.
I would love to have that happen today. So Nietzsche's Codes, that might be an unpopular opinion, but it is the correct opinion. So, and number one, Rick Reasons, his unpopular opinion is Star Wars is not science fiction. It's a fantasy story in a space setting.
Okay, I'll buy that.
There's not a lot. I guess it depends on how you define science fiction, because there's not a lot of really innovative, cool sciencey things in Star Wars, but it is in a futuristic setting. So, I don't know. Yeah, maybe he's right on that. Yeah.
I've often called Doctor Who science fantasy, right? Because his technological skills are so advanced that they appear to be magical. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they really do handwave stuff, handwave the science on it. So unlike something like, Star Trek, which tends to be a little bit crunchier science fiction, or the name has completely gone off. Not Farscape. Farscape's another one of those. It's not hard science. Oh, shoot. I'll think of it here in a minute. But there's another one that did, they actually did, had people almost in zero G, and they should, people, what it would be like for them to live actually out in space with elongated bones and all that. So I'm sure someone here will remind me what it is. Expanse, yes. Thank you, Blind Limey. The Expanse, yes. The Expanse is very cringy, hard science fiction. I think except with the shape of the ships, I suspect most of our ships will be spherical in nature because it's easier to move the engines around the ship than it is to rotate the ship. So to change the angle of your main engines, there's less mass involved in that. And changing that. So, if you could change where the position of the engines are on the outside of the sphere, then you don't have nearly as much mass moving before you can actually change your vector. So anyway.
And so with that, the prompt for next week is, what is something that is immoral but culturally accepted? Jim, you got an answer for that one?
Yeah, I work in tech, and we have a lot of H-1B visa folks. And I find the concept, the way that it works, not the concept, but the way that it actually ends up working. As an H-1B visa holder, you don't have the freedom to change jobs like a citizen does. And so if a place has really bad management, they can't move. They can't go someplace with better management. If they can get better pay somewhere else, it's much harder for them to take advantage of that. And to me, it just seems like a modern slavery light version of what we're doing. And the world is so small that do we really need to worry about it at this point? So, yeah, I think it's the H-1B visa program. The way it works, not the program itself, but the way it works at the employee level it turns into a form of slavery. And I just think it should be easier for them to be able to switch jobs, to get out from underneath bad management, or to go and take advantage of a price hike, work for a smaller company. Not every company can afford to do the H-1B process. So it just doesn't afford them as many opportunities as you would if as a citizen has. So
I had kind of a much simpler question to answer that. I was thinking littering. And I know it's not really culturally acceptable, but everybody does it when nobody's watching. I don't, but I know a lot of people that do. I pick up after them all the time. So I was thinking that would be a good answer. So a good simple answer, because if people still didn't think it was acceptable, I don't think we would see as much of it. So
yeah.
So I was wondering, I know I asked you a little bit before the show started, but I opened the show with talking about the ecostones. I have heard them called icostones, icostones. When I first found out about them back in the 1980s, I've been into this goofy shit my whole life. I had heard them pronounced as ecostones, and I'm thinking they're found in Peru where the Inca Empire is, so that's probably the correct way to pronounce it, ecostones. And I'd asked you if you'd ever seen them before, and I guess not. No, you'd never seen them?
No, I think I vaguely know what you're talking about, but I don't know that I've ever heard them actually named as to what they are. I know that there's been a number of cave painting style stuff that people think is true, but is probably faked.
Well, that's what happened with these, I think. There was I first found out about them reading a book on ancient astronauts back in the 1980s, because I was caught up in all that kind of crazy stuff at the time. And I actually thought they were real at the time, but as you read more about them and you find out about them, you realize that even though there are a few that might actually be real artifacts, and those don't display dinosaurs or any other weird stuff on them, because some of them have like scenes of open heart surgery and brain surgery on them. So if you don't count those, some of them might actually be authentic artifacts. But so one guy, there's actually a museum that has over 20,000 of them in Peru that the government still advertises as a tourist attraction. but they make a point to say that they're not that they're not confirmed artifacts. So that at least they do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard too when you have somebody who actually makes a real find, and then in order to enhance their own pocketbook, they make a bunch of fake ones, as has happened with a number of things. The Dead Sea Scrolls, for instance, are one of those things where a lot of them are real, but some of them have been faked. And, it's never a good thing, but it does happen, and people do, like to line their pocketbooks. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what this was. You're talking about an area where people don't have a lot of money. It turned out that Falsify, the farmer, wasn't the only farmer making these. And as soon as the word got out amongst his village that you could make money this way, the whole village started producing them. And they think there is as many as 100,000 of them that have been made over the course of 20, 30 years. So, yeah, I know, it's an incredible amount. What a crazy hoax that was. Huge hoax. And young Earth creationists still to this day will use them as proof that humans and dinosaurs coexisted. I come across them every once in a while because I talk to a lot of young Earth creationists being a geologist. So.
Yeah, I would imagine that gets a bit boring after a while too. Of people coming up with the same nonsense for geology, because geology is part of evolution, right? You're not a geologist; you're an evolutionist. Please, let's get the sciences right.
Yeah, totally.
And then there's like the Nebraska Man is another one, right? Where you get a dichotomy between the popular press, the mainstream press, and the academic press, right? The academic press is much more skeptical about the whole thing than the popular press, who wants to take it and run because people are interested and they're selling papers left and right. And that's always a good thing for them. So, it just... You got to look at where it comes from. And if you're quoting the New York Times on a piece of science, you should probably go check the source, because especially today, they're more interested in making money than they are getting it absolutely right. And then there's also the translation issue, right? Translating from hard science to what people can understand. And sometimes people, do you run into that with your geology?
I have run into that. Yes, I really have. And it's a good, and Forrest will tell you, a good scientist can explain it to a 5-year-old, and I try to, but I'll get people, my problem is I'll get people who think they already know something and are convinced that what I'm telling them is wrong, that because they know better, and people like these Ica stones, they're real. They're real. I know they are. Right? And they've never really checked it out. They just do it on faith. I get a lot of people who think that there's gold around me, and there's just no gold up around here all the time, though. I do have a couple of super chats.
Okay.
Before we even get started, we got super chats. This is amazing. And Blind Limey, member for 1 year, I think we all know who he is. He sent us $5, and he says, "Woe betide the..." I can't say it in his cool accent. "Woe betide the fool who tries to sling BS in front of these two titans of intellect. I'm almost entirely not joking." Is he not watching this show? He must be watching something else.
He's watching something else, I'm sure.
And my chat buddy, Quantum Answer, new member, gifted 5 Truth Wanted memberships. And we got a super chat from Alex Dolfoist. Dolfoist? I never really learned how to pronounce your last name. I know who you are, though. "To begin to toboggan first, buy a toboggan. But don't buy too big a toboggan. Too big a toboggan is too big a toboggan to buy to begin to toboggan." Ha, gotcha.
Well done. Well done, sir. Well done. I couldn't have done it. And yes, folks, if you want to make the host say stupid stuff, send in super chats. We'll say almost anything. We can't say anything about certain big events, mostly because as the promoters of those big events want people to pay them to say the name of those big events, I think. But Other than that, and clearly racist, misogynistic, and other such nonsense, we won't say. We'll make fun of you. So if you want to be on the, the sharper end of our wit, we'll be more than happy to do that. But almost everything else, you can get us to say all kinds of stuff.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Hey, Kelley, we've got some folks in chat who want you to say that again.
You want me to say that again? Okay, I'll do it one more time. Here we go. Too big to toboggan. Oh, wait. To begin to toboggan, first buy a toboggan, but don't buy too big a toboggan. Too big a toboggan is too big a toboggan to buy to begin to toboggan.
Well done. Now, if you want us to say it again, super chat it again. Actually, if you super chat it again, I'll say it. We do have a caller.
We do. But wait. Jason just sent, or not Jason, but Fact of Silver just sent us another super chat for $2 saying, say stupid stuff.
Stupid stuff.
Stupid stuff. There you go. Thanks, Fate of Silver. Appreciate it. Oh, our call dropped. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Is that what you were saying when I was talking?
Yeah, I was like, oh, we do have a call, and they dropped. So.
Oh, well, that sucks. Well, hopefully they'll call right back. And while we're waiting, we have a voicemail, I believe, to listen to.
Oh, no.
So maybe the crew will put that up for us.
Yes, I was listening to your program with Jim, Barrows, Barrows. It's hard to listen to that man when he goes, all the time. He does that all the time. I used to do that too, but I corrected myself. But it's hard to listen to him. Very, very hard. Thank you very much.
I agree that it is hard to listen to me when I do that. I agree completely. It is hard. I don't know why I do it. It's something I need to work on. One of many things I need to work on in hosting these shows. And you'd think I'd have worked on it by now, but I don't always notice when I do it. So, yeah.
I did. It was pointed out to me that he got a good in there at the end of his own at the end of the call. So
everybody does it. It still doesn't make it right. So, I will do better if I can.
We got a bunch of screenshots to look at too. Should we do those? Some of those?
Sure.
All right, let's do one. How about we just put up the first one? There we go. Needs a haircut and some treatment. I do need treatment. I do. I need all kinds of treatment. If you'd like to come over, give me treatments. Doors open. There's one for Jim. Are you aware that Jesus healed people on the Sabbath, right? This post is another example of atheist ignorance regarding what the Bible actually teaches. You were aware of that, okay, right, Jim?
Yes, I am aware of that. I don't know what that's in reference to. Some context on that one would be helpful.
I don't yet. All it says is just Jim at the end of it. So they must have wrote it to something you said.
Right. And I don't know what the context was. So, but yes, Sabbath, Jesus did heal people on the Sabbath. He did get in trouble for it. So yeah, that's problematic on a number of levels, depending on which way you want to go. Here I go again with the us. So the problem, I think, with him doing it is whether or not you believe that he destroyed the old laws or came to fulfill them and keep them. So it depends on which way you want to go as to whether or not him actually performing miracles on the Sabbath is a problem. So it just depends, and you can go either way. I mean, the Bible will support either conclusion. The Bible will support that the old laws of the Old Testament don't work, or are no longer in effect, and there are new laws. Or you can go with no, they still go. Just how do you want to do it? So The Bible is multiple choice.
Mm-hmm. Sure is. Sure is. I see there's a couple of people in the chat, in the YouTube chat. Why don't you give us a call? Don't just hang out and be anonymous in the chat. Give us a call. You'll reach it. You know, if you're trying to convince somebody, there's only a few people in the chat, but there's 1,000 watching the show. You'll get your word out there a lot better. So give us a call. And how about we do this next screenshot I kind of wanted to do, if we could do the next one. Here it is. The pyramids were made of stone with high quartz crystal content. Just because we don't know what crystals do doesn't mean they don't do anything. And if you're a geologist, you would know quartz has very specific properties. That's why watches are made with them. You're no geologist, LOL. This is something I get told a lot of times. I get it all the time. Yes, quartz has specific properties. It's piezoelectric. It will give off an electrical charge when it's compressed. Quartz will also regulate an electrical charge. That is why they put them into watches, because they will regulate electricity at a constant rate, and you can use that constant rate to actually keep the time. It has nothing to do with power. It has nothing to do with energy. It's just regulating the energy that gets put into it. It doesn't have its own energy in that case. So I have explained this 100 million times, and I'm happy to explain it to you too.
You mean crystals don't have healing power?
Not that I know of. It's an interesting proposition, and I honestly wish they did. I really do. I would love to hear that they do. And I've always said if the crystals did have healing powers, one of two things would be happening. Every mother in the country would have a $10, $20 crystal healing kit inside their medicine cabinet for when their kids get hurt, or they would come in a box that was $100 a piece, and they would have Pfizer written on the label. Right. So they don't have any healing powers.
Yeah, if you claim they do, now you have to explain how they actually heal, right? How do they cause the body to, if it's a scrape or a cut, to replace the skin cells, right? How does it accelerate or create, however you want to say it happens? How do the skin cells get healed? How do they get recreated? How does any of that work, right? It's not just, the body's not just electrical, it's also water. So if you're going to say it's sound waves, then sound waves permeate the body, but how, you get too strong of those and you can start exploding. Water will heat up and other bad things will happen. So water will ripple. How does any of this work, right? They never have a mechanism for how it works, just that it does work.
There's the one way I've often heard it be tried to explain is a really, really, really bad misinterpretation of, I guess it would be a really good misinterpretation of quantum physics. Because people get an idea of what quantum physics is, they're totally wrong about it, but they go with this whole idea. And you can actually see this written in New Age books and crystal healing books as the way the crystals work. Everything has a vibration on a quantum level. And the vibrations of the crystals affect the vibrations of your body. And I always thought, well, if that were true, then wouldn't everything affect the vibrations of your body? Because everything does. Walk past a fire hydrant, it affects you. Pass a person walking from the other direction, walking their dog, both of them will affect you. So will the leash, right? I just don't get it.
Yeah, and none of that actually affects cells being replicated faster to heal if it's a cut or a scrape or something along those lines. If it's a bruise, you still have damaged blood vessels. So how does that damage get repaired? There has to be a mechanism to affect how the body, or to accelerate the body to do those things. And then how do you accelerate? If it's something that affects the whole body, then the whole body's being accelerated, which means that your body clock is moving faster, which means it's the body clock that determines when you're going to die, essentially. And body clock is a euphemism for the biological processes and other stuff that cover in cell death, right? I don't know. It makes no sense.
It's almost like a suspension. Like, when I used to believe in this, I really thought because I didn't do enough looking into what quantum physics was. I really thought that this was viable stuff. And then I was making jewelry, and people would ask me, well, how did this crystal get formed? And I was like, wow, I have no idea. So I went back to school. I learned geology. I learned the science behind it. And I realized that everything I had believed in was just all bullshit. And it wasn't an easy day, believe me. But, you know, yeah. And I'm so glad that I know so much better now about what I used to believe in. So.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing when you actually start to examine and go, why do I know that? How do I know that? And then you start going, oh, that's where my error in thinking. I trusted somebody I shouldn't have trusted. But that's not always a bad thing, right? You trust your parents to tell you things, and that your parents should know things better than you do as a kid. And so that's where a lot of it begins. But just because your parents know it doesn't mean it's true. Right. That's the problem. And if they're not careful, they'll pass those things on to you as a kid. But yeah, I love learning new stuff all the time. My YouTube feed is mostly that. So yeah, it's just, how do you know what you know?
Yeah.
That's the fundamental question. And we still have no callers, folks. So come on, give us a call. What's the number? Oh, it's right there at the bottom of the screen, isn't it? 512-909-19
Somebody listened to us. They're going through the call screener right now. And while they're doing that, if you wanted to, you're hanging around doing work, you're just sitting around the house, or you want to listen to something that's controversial, I can't say it today. Don't know what to listen to, go to tiny.cc/AEN podcast, and you can get all of the latest ACA shows in podcast form. So there you go. Now you know what to do with yourself. And if you've ever been sitting around going, I wish, I love to watch the shows. I think it's great. I wish I could watch them like all the time, whenever I wanted to. You can go to two, not one, but two 24/7 live streams. AXP TV delivers a constant stream of shows, clips, and specials from over 27 seasons of the Atheist Experience. And now Heathen TV provides you with clips from Talk Heathen. Watch or simply listen to all of your favorite hosts, and maybe discover ones that you didn't know about, because there's a lot of the old hosts on that aren't on anymore. I really like some of the old hosts. I really miss Martin. I thought Martin was a very underappreciated host by the fans. I really did like Martin.
Martin was good. I miss Tracy a lot. Tracy had a really good way of putting things that I enjoyed. So yeah, lots of folks, old hosts. We've been around for a really, really long time, and some of those hosts are still around. They're just not doing the show or hanging out at the ACA. They have moved on to bigger, better, more fun things. Well, hopefully they're more fun.
Yeah, well, yeah, right, hopefully. Well, we do have a call ready for us. We're going to bring him up. It's Ryan, him from New York, and he wants to talk about falsifying the Abrahamic God. So, hi, Ryan.
Hi, Kelley. Hi, Jim. How you guys doing?
Hey, how's it going?
What do you got for us?
Pretty good. Yeah, so I had a question. I watched all the ACA shows and that, and I've been following you guys for a while. A lot of people will know me as Omega Weapon. I just wanted to put that out there. But I get into talks with theists a lot of the time, and something I hear over and over again is that the Abrahamic God is somehow outside space and time, which to me is completely nonsensical, because as far as our language goes, and as far as how we identify things that actually exist in reality, those are dependent upon space-time. I mean, creation and causation, to me, only makes sense when space-time is involved. I don't know what it means to say you can create or cause something absent that. So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, if that's potentially one way to falsify at least maybe the Abrahamic God, if people are defining it that way.
Yeah, I don't know that it makes any sense to talk about outside of space and time, just because we don't know what that means, especially time, right? What does it mean before time or outside of time? The universe, I mean, we call it space, physicists call it space-time. The two things exist together and they can't exist separately. So the universe, the local presentation of the universe has existed for all of time because time had a beginning at the same time the universe did. So that doesn't make any sense. It may not make any sense to speak outside because we don't know what that really means. We don't have any way of testing if it's possible to be outside. And to me, it's just a place to run because we can't prove that anything exists outside. So theists, Christians in particular, with their all-powerful God, run out to something that nobody can prove or disprove for that matter. So yeah, I think it's just an escape mechanism that gets them out of having to prove anything.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Because even when you reference something inside or outside, you're giving a spatial reference point, right? In order to say something's outside, outside in and of itself is some type of reference point, referencing either, spatial extension or time in some way. So I don't see how one could get around that logically anyways. And that would seem to imply at least, go ahead.
I was just saying, it seems to me too, like their whole concept of this place that's somewhere out of space and time where God exists is also their excuse for things not having to have a cause, right? Once you're in this timeless, spaceless place, that's where God existed, and he existed before time and space, right? So that's why we can have something that existed without a cause, because it's outside of anything that we could measure, right? And it's, to me, it's a weird concept. I don't really understand it. I don't understand how somebody could think that was a logical argument, but it seems that a lot of Christians do, at least. So yeah. I don't know how to even counter something like that too. How do you? Except to say that, how do we know anything exists outside the world as we know it?
Well, yeah, I would start with, how do we identify or label something that exists, that is extant? We do that with space-time location.
I should have said that in reality, not the world, but.
Right. And they also have a problem with nothing. Yeah. They also have a problem with nothing, because nothing doesn't exist, right? There's been several experiments that physicists have done that have definitively proved that the philosophical concept of absolute nothing doesn't exist. You can go outside of where there's no gravity affecting you, get a lead-lined box so that no electromagnetic waves get inside. You can pump all the atoms outside of the box, that are inside of the box, pump them outside. So there's just nothing in the box, no matter in the box, but yet you'll still have the quantum foam existing inside the box. We don't seem to be able to get rid of that. And no matter how small a space you have, the quantum foam still exists inside of that. That's one of the tests they did. And so as far as we can tell, you always have quantum foam. So you always have something. You never have nothing. What does that mean outside the universe, though? And that's kind of the question you've got to answer is, what does it mean to exist outside of the universe? We know that the Higgs boson gives us mass. And we know that I forget what percentage of the human body or at any given time is actually made of virtual particles. There's all kinds of stuff that's just kind of like quantum physics makes no sense. And yet they seem to want to make these claims that cause and effect is a thing. Well, it is, but not at the quantum level necessarily. Sometimes the effect comes before the cause. And sometimes things happen with no cause, like quantum entanglement. When you quantumly entangle two particles, they have opposite spin. There's no cause for that. So there's a lot of things they just don't understand because they're basing everything they know on a book that was written a long time ago when we didn't know anything. And granted, in 2,000 years, whoever's still around will think that we don't know anything right now, just like we don't think anybody knew anybody. Nobody knew anything from 2,000 years ago. So the best thing you can do is say, I don't know for a lot of this stuff, right? You can't make claims just because it makes you feel good to have an answer. It doesn't mean the answer's right. And I think a lot of Christians are like that. They like the certainty. They don't like uncertainty. And that gives them a certainty that they can't justify.
Yeah. Yeah, the idea of absolute certainty, I can see how it's very appealing and very comforting, especially talking with precepts or people who support the tab argument. But, well, I appreciate your time, and that was very insightful.
Well,
thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks for calling. It was good to hear your voice. Yeah, cool.
You too. It's a pleasure talking to both of you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure talking to you as well. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Quantum is one of the people that hangs out at the 24/7 live stream chat.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I talk to him all the time. It was cool to hear his voice. That was awesome.
That is always awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a really nice group of people hanging out there. If you're just sitting around with nothing to do on an afternoon, you just stop in over there and hang out in the chat room and meet people, because there's a really good group of people hanging out there. We do have another call.
Oh, another call. What are we going to do?
We got one from Mickey, they, them in Florida, who says, without religion, do you think we should discriminate against nudists? I mean, gays are born gays, nudists are born nude. So I'm hoping this isn't a joke call, but it is a pretty funny introduction. So hey, Mickey, how are you?
Hey, I'm sorry if it's funny to you, but I don't think that discrimination against a minority class is funny at all.
No, but I mean, gays are born gays and nudists are born nude does have a little bit of a funny ring to it. Nudists being born nude.
I mean,
that's what I mean. I don't think the concept is funny. I thought the way the words sounded together was kind of funny.
Yeah, it's funny to people who isn't affected to, but that's just me. But I wanted to talk about that more or less. And I just wanted to say that, do you think that it's because religion that we have this heavy prejudice against nudist people, or do you think that we would have a natural prejudice against them despite religion?
I'm not sure about that. I know nudity was pretty commonplace before the Victorian era, and I'm not sure what it was in that time period that made people all of a sudden think nudity was a bad thing. I'm not sure if it was religion or something else, but it could certainly be used to say that nudist people were bad. I could totally see that. Jim?
Yeah, I think when we look at clothing through the years, and depending on where you are, you're going to see a wide variety of clothing options, mostly dependent on the weather conditions that the people live in, right? So I could see a culture being anti-nudist because to be a nudist is to court death at a much higher risk level than that culture may be willing to accept. So that's a possibility, like if it's super cold or super hot deserts. So that could definitely be a thing. And that may also be what influenced religion in some ways, not to mention the mores on sex and women being more covered up than men. Those kinds of things happen too from religion. But I think it would be more that if it was a cultural taboo, it would be based more on where you lived and the weather conditions, things like that, rather than religious based. So Eskimos probably would be less nudist than, say, Apache Indians living in the desert Southwest. And you take, North American Indians living in Montana might be less nudist than the Apaches, or people closer to the equator, right? There's an interesting phenomenon regarding time that I'm kind of extrapolating from, where the farther north from the equator, and the farther south you move from the equator, but mostly the farther north, because that's where more people are, you have a more emphasis on time being important. You have to be on time because you have less time to get everything you need together to survive the winter. And so time becomes very, very important in the northern latitudes, where in the southern latitudes, it really, really doesn't matter. So in Germany, the trains have to run on time because time is important. And in Italy, they can run when they want to, because you don't have to worry about getting the crops in. You don't have to worry about having all the wood chopped. So if we extrapolate for this idea to clothing, I think you can do the same thing, that various cultures in warmer climates would be more nudist as opposed to cultures in northern climates. And then I think we can see that in kind of the dress of North Americans, possibly the Chinese. I don't know enough about Chinese fashion to actually guess that, but also technology to build clothes also comes into play as well. So cotton versus silk versus other natural fibers or skins, as the case may be. So I don't know. It's an interesting question to think about, but I think it would definitely be less of a hard taboo where we're putting people in jail, maybe a softer taboo, just because it is based on, if you go out naked, you're going to freeze to death, or if you go out naked, you're going to burn to a crisp. So I think, like Saudi Arabia they go more covered than Native Americans in the desert Southwest, but the Middle East is also hotter and drier. So I don't know.
So are you one of those people that would support like nudist rights based on like the weather or where you live at? Like if you live in Florida or California, I don't think you have to worry about freezing to death.
Yeah, I would. If you live in Montana and want to go out in the nude, more power to you. Just don't cause other people to have to risk their lives to save yours because you were being an idiot. I'm not a fan of that. But yeah, if you wanted to run around nude in the snow, go for it. Just like I said, don't cause an incident that's going to cause other people to risk their lives to save yours. I think that would be the bridge too far for me. Same thing with the sun, right? When I lived in Phoenix, we had people who tried to climb Camelback all the time, and they didn't take enough water, and so they'd get life flighted off the mountain. It's not terribly risky, so it's not a huge deal. But if you go walking out into some places, you can, and fall, you could definitely create a problem where people have to risk their lives. That's why Phoenix actually, if you drive into a place that when it's flooding, that has too much water in it, and it says don't drive through this when flooded, and you do, you pay for the rescue effort to save your butt because you were stupid. You drove someplace you shouldn't have. Those kinds of things I'm in favor of. But other than that, I don't really care what you wear or don't wear.
Well, could I add, like, a lot of stupid people don't have money, so you're just going to be chasing after like a pocket with holes in it. Like a lot of stupid people, they don't have money or nothing, so they don't care if you sue them. But I moreover wanted to clarify. So you're okay with like nudist rights as long as if they get in trouble for expressing their rights, it's their fault. Like,
well, getting themselves into trouble, not getting themselves into trouble, putting themselves in a rescue situation where the rescue situation puts the rescuers at risk themselves. So in most cases, we get a helicopter out. It's a low risk thing. No big deal. But if you're like scuba diving is one of those things where if you get in trouble under the water, people are going to risk their lives to try and save you. And that's not a good thing. So it really is where a rescuer is going to risk their own life to save yours or to attempt to retrieve your body. That's the default. So it's not just trouble, right? It's life-threatening trouble in a situation that causes rescuers to also put their lives at risk. So it's a little bit more than just in trouble.
Let me just clarify, like, if you go outside, like, butt naked and stuff like that, like, at worst, you might like freeze, but if you're just continuously like being active, like you're running, you're jumping, because I'm in the military and they make us go outside with shorts on and it's like 20 degrees, but we feel hot as hell. You know why? Because they make us run.
Right. No, I was in the military everywhere. Too. No. So you're not. So again, you're not in a life-threatening situation. Or the situation we're rescuing you from that situation puts the rescuer at risk. That's the condition. That's where I would say, no, don't do that. Which is why Phoenix, charges you to rescue you when you decide to drive through a flooded area. Is because you're putting resources at risk. You're putting people at risk to rescue you in a flooded situation. Fast-moving, deep water is risky no matter what. Even if you're in full scuba gear, you're still putting people at risk doing that. And you're also taking resources away from other people who need it, who may be more life-threatened than you. So there's a whole bunch of things that happen with that. And that's kind of why I draw the line at that, right? It's when you start doing things where you have to be rescued and maybe even impact people who need to be rescued through no fault of their own. But that's the line, right? Risking your life in a situation where that situation risks rescuer lives. So that's pretty much, and that leaves you pretty wide open to all kinds of things, right? You want to go run naked through minus 30-degree weather? Okay. You want to go into a cave naked, nude, and put people at risk because you decided to go deep into a cave that you weren't ready for because you didn't have the right protective gear? Well, that's a whole different situation, right? Now you're putting rescuers at risk.
Yeah, I understand that. And let me debunk a lot of like opinions that a lot of people bring up to me when I'm talking about nudist rights. Like people, when you're talking about nudist rights, people like, okay, I wouldn't want somebody to like go outside butt naked and freeze to death. Okay, fine. What if somebody had a all plastic uniform, which is see-through, but it's plastic, so it keeps their body heat intact in their body. And then you see their faces like glow up to think, what else can they do to like discriminate against this minority? Because I read somewhere that 15% of like people in America are nudists, are practicing nudists. And I'm thinking to myself, in the future, like, there's definitely going to be a nudist, like, movement where we all get together and we're like, okay, you cannot push us back into the closet. Like, we have a right to exist. Because it all started, I know that, like, a little bit of the nudist, like, movement was when women were breastfeeding, and a lot of times they wouldn't allow women breastfeed in restaurants because they said that that's showing too much flesh. Mm-hmm. But now,
a lot of that comes from the Christian idea that women are responsible for men's thoughts, right? Which is completely bullshit. No, like I said, I don't have a problem with.
Yeah.
Can I add? It's not even a Christian idea. Christ said that if your eye causes you to sin, pull it out. He doesn't say if your eye looks at a woman's chest, pull her breast out because she's causing you to sin. It's all on you. It's all on you.
Well, again, the Bible is multiple guests, and I would just like to stick to the nudity side of things. And no, I don't think either Kelley or I have a problem with people wanting to walk around nude. Like I said, and my caveat is regardless of whether you're wearing clothes or not. I don't really care if you're wearing clothes or not. Don't put yourself in a position where people rescuing you have to risk their lives to do so if you could possibly avoid it. Take the right precautions. So, no, I don't think...
whether you're wearing clothes or not, don't be in that position.
Amen. Okay.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I need to... I said, amen. Thank you. I agree with what you said. Everything you said.
Do you?
I agree wholeheartedly.
Do you think there's been a movement? Do you think there's been a movement amongst people already to see nudity be more accepted in this country? I know that some cities have nudist bike rallies. I mean,
underground movement. I know in Canada, women could actually walk around with their breast out just like men. You know how men can walk around without their shirt? Women can walk around without their shirt. They can have their tits out and stuff like that. And you got the same people who cry about seeing gay people. They're like, ew. They're the same people who see nudist people, when the fact is that if you're growing up in America, you've seen a naked body. If you had a younger brother or sister, you had to change them. You've seen their naked body. It's the same body, just larger parts. Like, get over it. So do you feel like there's some type of correlation between the discrimination of LGBT people, non-binary people, asexual people, trans people, and the nudist community?
Well, everybody you just mentioned, we know we can trace those folks to their DNA and look at and that's a problem of birth. I'm not 100% convinced we could say the same type of thing as nudity, right? Because there's very good reasons to wear clothes that have nothing to do with modesty, right? Have everything to do with protection from the elements. So I'm not 100% sure we're in the same boat, because I think that nudity is probably more of a choice than being in the LGBTQIA community. There is no choice there. That is the way you are. It's the way you were born. And I would need to be convinced that nudity falls into that same category. And I don't know that it does.
Here's what a lot of people will say, not to cut you off or nothing. Here's what a lot of people will say. You could be born with the preference, but if you act on it, that's the choice. And here's the thing. You're born naked. 99% of all creatures on this earth is naked. It's only humans who decided to call being naked, being natural, a sin.
Well, we're also hairless apes, and as such, we're more susceptible to climate, sun, cold, and the weather than we are anything else. We've also used clothes to adapt ourselves into situations where we're not exactly the best at surviving. So, people just recently survived minus 30 degrees. Why did they do that? Because they have the proper clothes to walk around outside and be safe, and housing too. So clothing's an adaptation that we make, that's part of our tool use that makes us unique, is the tool use. And clothes are definitely a tool to do that. So this is why I say I don't necessarily agree that being a nudist is the same thing as being in the LGBTQIA community. Because yes, we're born naked, and yes, kids prefer to be naked and will often, streak through things because that's the way they prefer it. But there's also, clothes are a tool to use. And I don't see nobody chooses to be gay, right? So, and I don't see that in the same way. I don't see being gay as a tool. Clothes are a tool. So they're just not, they don't seem to me to be on the same footing. Now, They both have prejudices, yes, that are unrealistic and kind of silly and religious based. Yes, they do. So on that footing, in terms of being discriminated against simply because, hey, it's warm enough out and I feel like going topless and I'm a woman and I can't, that makes sense to me. Or if you want to go and wear almost nothing, wear nothing. So yes, in that respect, they're kind of the same. I don't think the discrimination is nearly as bad because you have nudist beaches. We have nudist beaches. You can go to Austin, Texas, and there's a nudist beach there near the lake. There's nudist beaches all over the place. I'm unaware of any beach that is declared just for LGBTQIA folks. So can you tell me which beach?
They have beaches in San Francisco that were gay beaches. It doesn't really come to mind. But I want to circle back to
they
the
were
whole idea
they were
that,
designated by the local government to be gay beaches, like they do with nudist beaches.
Hold on. I would say no, but I don't know if any local government say that this beach is designated to be a nudist beach. And if you come on this beach with clothes, we're going to arrest you. We're going to kick you out. I don't know any government that does that. Do you know a government that does that?
No, I'm completely flabbergasted by the concept.
The point I'm trying to make here is... Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that you say there's nude beaches or there's gay beaches, but we have nude beaches that have been designated by our local governments to be nude beaches, right? If you want to be nude, you can't do it on this beach, but you can go over there and do it on that beach, right? We actually have legal designations for nudist beaches, but excuse me. But we don't have something like that for gay beaches. And that's what I'm saying is the difference. It's not the same. And when you say, well, that's like a gay beach over there, maybe the people who go to that beach have decided to kind of all go to that beach, right? But that doesn't mean that beach is legally a gay beach.
Well, that has more to do with segregation. That has more to do with the idea that, okay, we're going to allow these nudist peasants to have their own beach. Nobody has to be like, okay, no gays allowed here on this beach, because there's no way to enforce that. There is to enforce if you're a nudist. They could be like, oh, I can spot you. You're a nudist. Get out. There hasn't been a beach to my recent memory that's like no gays allowed. If you have an example of that, please provide. And I'm talking about in America.
We're not saying that there is. We've never made the claim that there is a beach that says no gays allowed, right? And that's not even our point. My point is that LGBTQIA is in a different category than nudist. Nudist is more of a choice than being LGBTQ. Being LGBTQIA is not a choice. Being a nudist is.
Okay, could I?
I don't know of any case. You would have to go back and show me some evidence that is directly related to DNA and not just a choice to, hey, I like being nude. I mean, to me, that's like saying, hey, I like ice cream, right? It's a preference.
Can you cite me a gay gene then if it's not a choice?
No, we have not been able to trace it that far. However, there is no indication that it is a choice. Nobody would choose to be gay if they couldn't because of all the backlash. But yes, it is not a choice, right? So, can I say that there's a lot of things nobody would choose to do, but they still do it. Like there's been people who's been let out of prison who has like probably gene problems, and they sexually. Yeah, and that's a whole different topic though, because I don't think prison, the way that we currently do prison works. I think it's a really, really bad idea. So yeah, there are genetic issues with that. So this is one of those things where, again, you're going to have to prove that people don't have a choice to except to be nudist. Right. You're going to have to do the same thing
I mean, could I bring up issues like the fact that there's stuff like gay for pay, or there's stuff like political lesbianism, where people literally choose to have gay sex for monetary, political reasons. You know, there's people who
that has completely tangential to what we're talking about. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, right? People can choose to do all kinds of things for money and have chosen to do all kinds of things for money. That has nothing to do, you know, this has nothing to do with what you're talking about. It's completely a non sequitur and completely useless to support your position.
You're saying that people don't choose to be gay, but I'm pointing examples of people choosing to be gay. Political lesbianism.
If they're not, just because somebody chooses to have gay sex for money doesn't make them gay, right?
So
doesn't make them gay just because of that. You could be straight, decide you could make more money in gay porn and go do gay porn and still be straight. That has nothing to do with it. You're completely off base on this.
Bisexual.
No, because it's what your preference is.
Nikki, you mentioned sin earlier, that it was a sin to walk around naked, or some people would think that it was a sin to walk around naked. What do you think about sin? Are you a theist, that you believe sin is a real thing?
Can I ask you something? Can I ask the host something? I don't know your name. If I have sex with you and I don't like it, and I want you to answer my question first. Okay. I want you to answer my question first. Tell me the question.
You need me to ask it again? You mentioned sin earlier. What is your take on sin? Are you a theist and you a Christian, say, and think that sin is a real thing?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so now let me ask you one more question. Was this whole thing about nudity just to call up and talk about gay and trans people?
No, because not everything. I have gay friends, I have nudist friends, I have people in both lifestyles. So I didn't want to really talk about that. I just wanted to talk about exclusively nudist.
That's something that usually that's something that a bigot would say, right? Well, I have black friends. Well, I have Asian friends. I have gay friends, right? So that when you say something like that, that's kind of triggering for a lot of people, right? So that's not what I asked you. What I asked you was, did you call up with the nudity thing so you could talk about gay and trans people?
No, I did not. I wanted to exclusively talk about nudist people.
Okay, well, we've talked about nudist people.
Okay, so why did you bring up gay and trans people then?
Can I say something? If I wanted to talk about gay and trans people, I would call trans Atlantic.
You were the one that brought it up. You were the one that brought it up. We didn't. You brought it up.
I mean, you could have just let it slide, and we could have just talked about nudist people if you want. I'm sorry, but
we could have, but you didn't let it slide. You were the one that brought up other people. You were.
I mean,
that's why I'm asking you. And it seems to me that it was just like you were using this as a way to show that one thing might not be the other thing, or that one thing was so ridiculous that the other thing was as ridiculous as well. That's what it seems like. I'm trying to nail this down.
Hold on. Do you think that my nudist friend's lifestyle is ridiculous?
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. And the fact that you're not listening to me and responding with an answer like that kind of makes me think that I'm on the right track here.
I'm autistic. It's hard for me to pay attention. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, what I'm asking is, like you called up to talk about nudity, and then you bring up gay and trans people, And then you say, well, I was happy to talk about nudity. We didn't have to talk about gay and trans people, but Jim didn't bring it up. I didn't bring it up. You brought it up, and you said some pretty nasty things about gay and trans people.
Hold on. Let's just switch it. Instead of gay and trans people, let's say nudists are born nude and African Americans are born black. Are you okay with that one?
I don't understand. I don't understand why you're trying to change the subject right now, because I'm trying to get to a point here.
No.
And it seems to me that you're trying to run away from the reason that you might have called here.
Hold on.
Yeah, you're going on to things that again make absolutely no sense to compare to, right? And it seems like you're just making these comparisons either so you can soundbite us, or simply because you're a bigot and you want to talk about bigoted things. I'm not really sure which it is. So anyway,
you're a bigot.
What do you think, Kelley?
My duck says that if it walks like a bigot and it talks like a bigot, it's probably not a duck.
Yeah.
Do you want to respond to that?
I don't think you should. I think we
All
should
right.
just go ahead.
We'll just go ahead and drop that call. I think is probably the best way to handle that. All right. Well, sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a little more interesting.
I had to stop that because I thought now we're not only being now are we not only being bigoted against trans people and gay people, but it sounded like he was going to start being racist as well.
Right. Yeah. And again, you need to show that being a nudist is at the same level has the same causes as skin color and being LGBTQIA. It just doesn't work that way. I don't think. It doesn't seem to me. Now, there may be something in there that says, yeah, but the fact of the matter is we just don't see that at right now at all. And no, we don't have a problem with people being nude. Wear what you want or don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem with nudity. I don't have a problem with people fighting for nude rights. I really honestly don't have that at all. So we do have some super chats. Let's go to those. We got one from Hell's Bells for $6.66, of course. You're going to make me read something funny again, huh? There was once a devil so bold. Oh, it just jumped on me. Sorry. Somebody put something else up and it jumped away on me. There was once a devil so bold that he left his behind exposed. He thought it quite fun, stayed out in the sun and a bum-blinding light, a bum-blinding sight to behold. Well, I didn't read that one as well as I read the tongue twister.
Oh. And we have Jason.
And we have
super chat from K-Dub for $1 with no message. Thank you very much, K-Dub. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we certainly do. And one for $1 from Kenito Watson, also with no message. So thank you, Kenito. We appreciate that as well. Oh, look, they both gave us another one too there. You want to get that one, Jim?
Let's see. Where is that? For $5? Yes.
No,
Do you suppose
$5.
a church? Yeah. K-Dub for $5. Do you suppose a church would discreetly mail your baptismal record to you if you ask? I think it would depend on the individual church, not necessarily the denomination. Right. If it's a small church and they don't have the staff, they might force you to pay them a little bit just to pay for the staff. A larger megachurch might be willing to do it for free. I don't know. Maybe they might be more likely to charge you. I don't know. And I guess it depends what you mean by discreet. It's probably being a brown envelope with the church's return address on it. If you wanted to be more discreet than that, I suppose you could ask them. But I'd ask the church. Like I said, I think it's an individual church level. I don't think it's a denomination thing. But I could be wrong too, because it could be one denomination says, no, we don't do that. Another denomination says, yeah, sure, what the heck? So, It's Christians. It's multiple guests.
I'm not even sure how they. I'm not even sure how they keep that as a record. Do they keep that in the church where you baptize to? Or does it go to the main church church group headquarters? Like if you're a
Right.
Mormon, does it get put away in a building in Salt Lake City? I don't really know. I really honestly don't know.
Yeah, and Catholic churches probably
So,
keep
sorry,
it,
I
not at the
can't answer
church
that
level.
without-
And the Catholics probably don't keep it at the church level. They probably keep it at the diocese level. So, and some of them might just give the parents the baptismal record and they don't keep a copy of it all. So, who knows?
Yeah, I'm not positive. I guess you'd have to check with the church. You need the, you need the baptismal record from. So, got another super chat though from Kenita Watson for $2. Less nudity leads to fewer splotches on the furniture.
True.
The wisdom there.
Yeah. Less leakage and spreadage.
And with that, we got our super chats wrapped up, and our call
Always a
lines
good
are
thing.
open. Give us a call. And boy, that was a real roller coaster ride there. I'll tell you what, man. I kind of had a feeling with the way that the way it was worded when I took the call, when I said it was kind of funny, and then he was like, "What are you making jokes about?" Well, yeah, I am making a joke, so piss on you.
Right. Yeah.
I was
And that's
having a
why
hard time with that call too, because it was something weird happening. Go ahead.
His audio quality wasn't the best. And that's also why I tried to keep him
I was having a
from.
weird thing on my audio too. We're having a bad delay,
Yeah.
Jim.
Am I? I don't seem to be. Nothing's slow on my side, so I'm not sure where the delay is coming from.
Yeah, it could be on my side. I'm not sure.
Anyway,
My voice is.
So,
my
yeah,
mouth is moving to my voice when I talk, though.
I was trying to keep it away from all those topics just because I also had a feeling that he was going there, and the legality of nudity was far more interesting than trying to equate it to things that people have no control over. So.
Yeah, I kind of thought the whole idea of the legality of nudity was a good thing to talk about myself, and then I wanted, because he did mention sin, nudity being a sin, so I was wondering where he was going to stand on that, and that's when we went into territory I wasn't expecting to go into, and our backup post, I could see Helen was fuming. You could actually literally see the smoke pouring out from Helen backstage there.
Yeah, I don't have the backstage view up. I just have the two of us to try to make it easier to not talk over you and not interrupt you. It works, but sometimes not.
I think we were getting a little bit of a bad delay there, but I think we're pretty good now. So we do still have some call lines open. Give us a call. We got a few minutes left of the show. And I don't know what else to talk about, Jim. What do you think? Got a good topic for us?
I don't know. I was kind of surfing chat there. Yeah, we do screenshots.
Let's do some more screenshots. Yeah. Where are we at there? Oh, I lost my thing here. Sorry. Let me get it together here. The materials. Wait a minute. That's not the right one. Sorry, Pajama Boy. This is for you, Jim. Your logic is absurd. I claim to be a brain surgeon. Does that mean I am one? I know 6th graders that would school this tool. Stick to TikTok.
I'm not on TikTok except as a consumer. Pajama Boy, I'm not real sure. Oh, he must be talking about the shirts that I wear. Because they're loud, like I guess pajamas are. I like loud, bright shirts. I find most men's clothing to be boring because they're not bright. They're very basic and very plain. I'm just like, I don't want that. So anyway, I guess he's talking about that. Again, without context, I have no idea what he's talking about. He can claim to be whatever you want to be doesn't make you the thing. So I don't know what I don't know what the context was. It'd be nice to know what I said that caused him to say that, but I don't even know what episode it was from. So
yeah, they're all kind of out of context. So I got another one for me here. I do wish atheists would get their facts correct, but I suspect I will remain disappointed. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. There are at least 5 books which mentions Jesus's miracle working and other documents that mention miracles among the early believers. Question them as much as you like, but at least get the basic facts correct. And I don't know what this is about, but there isn't. There aren't 5 books that mention Jesus's miracle working from his time. There are a couple of Roman historians that mention him. One of those Roman historians was actually born supposedly the same year that Jesus was crucified. So get your facts straight. There are no contemporary accounts of Jesus.
And if you're talking about the Gospels, well, Matthew is 90% Mark, and he corrects Mark in some places. So we could really say that's one book. Luke says in the very beginning that he's collecting accounts so that he can tell you what's true. So he's hearsay evidence right out of the bat. John is all about theology and not really about, so it seems, he's got lots of differences between him and the other Gospels that seem to support his theology and not what actually happened. So when you say there are 5 books, I've just taken you down to at best 3. One of those 3 is hearsay, so I've taken you down to 2. So yeah, where's the 5 books, bud? So, because they're not the Gospels at all.
No, there certainly aren't. We have a call coming through. We'll let the call screener take care of it for a minute. We'll bring it up. But you're absolutely right. It's something that I see a lot too. That it's this. That claim that there are all these historical references to Jesus that are contemporary, and they're just not there. I wish there was. Again, I would love to see this kind of proof. It just isn't there. So
yeah, Paul is early, but he also doesn't claim that Jesus is a real person. And the others are, even if we use apologist numbers, right? The earliest is 50 years after he died. That's a long time for hearsay and stories to be embellished and for memories to go foggy and cold. So we still don't have any good contemporary, even with those. And yes, you could make a case that people had better memories than we do now because they needed them. And so it's a skill, and so you could learn to memorize better. But that still doesn't account. You're still going to get discrepancies that you can't account for, that make things not true. So do we have things that go back to year 40, year 50? Sure. But that doesn't mean those things are true, right? So.
Right. Exactly. I'm keeping an eye out on our call screening.
Yep.
Okay, and I am going to bring up Thumper, him from Maine. Wants to know why would one race tend to act different? Is there a genetic or biological reason that people act differently, I guess? Let's see what he has to say. Hi, Thumper, can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jim and Kelley. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I basically just have an interesting question. Let's suppose that no Europeans had ever come to America, and the natives had continued to act as they always did. They just buffalo rug and maybe a birch bark canoe. Do you think they ever would have tried to invent the wheel?
That's a really good question.
It is a good question, and it was invented?
Is one race? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm over talking. Sorry.
No, you're okay. You're okay. It was invented by some of the early Central and South American tribes, but they only put them on toys for some reason, which I always found weird. You know why? And there are little toys that look like they were meant to be pulled behind a child with little tiny wheels on them, and yet they never thought to make big wheels for carts. I always thought that was weird.
Yeah. I mean, it just, why would some people just be satisfied and happy for the simple life, that the Native Americans had, and other people are really interested in making their life easier, or what drives them to invent things? It's kind of a strange.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it gets even. Yeah, you get even stranger when you look.
Laziness is the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when you look at like China versus Venice or Italy or Europe and exploration, you can make the case that the Pacific is bigger than the Atlantic, but at least one Chinese ship made it all the way to Africa. And we know there was some trade between China, Japan, and the Pacific Islands, not a lot. But there was some. And so why did the Chinese just decide not to go as far? Who knows? I think some of it may be related to overland trade and you can't get heavy. It's hard to get heavy things overland, right? It's easier to do that with a watercraft. You can get a lot heavier stuff on a boat than you can in the back of a truck or that kind of thing. So I think part of it is that, right? The need to trade, but also scarcity comes into play, I think, and also abundance. Do you have the time to devote to people thinking about things? Do you have the time to have them be philosophers? You have to have enough of an economy and enough abundance to support someone who is getting paid to think instead of getting paid to produce food. So there's probably a whole bunch of things that come into it that we just haven't thought about. Did religion have part of it, wanting to expand and that? Sure, probably. But I think it was some combination of abundance and scarcity that came together, along with the recognition that we're trading all the way to India from Europe, and it would be faster. We could get more stuff if we could do it by ship than do it by land, right? So greed probably had. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that laziness drives invention. There's the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention, but humans are inherently lazy, and we're smart enough to figure out ways for work to be done with as little bit of actual physical work on our own part as possible. So I've always said that the laziest people are usually the ones that invent the best stuff. So
right.
Yeah.
Also, too, terrain has something to do with it, right? The Romans built roads so they could put stuff on wheels and transport troops. Maybe harder to roll over a rock than the travois that they were using. That's a possibility. And then, in some of the other conditions, maybe wheels just don't work as well when they're made out of the materials that primitive folks had. Wood, stone, I didn't have rubber, skins, things like that, probably just didn't have it. And then, Rome was very expansionist and built roads. And once you have roads where it's easy, I think wheels become more of a thing that work. So I don't know. It's just, there's a lot of, I don't think it's any one thing, right? Roman roads helped quite a bit. Chinese also had roads, but they didn't really need to, I don't know that they traded with India. I know they had, there was some trade, but I don't know if they traded as much. And I say India, I mean all along that path, right? Not just India itself, but all along it. So, yeah, it's hard to say I don't think it was one thing. I think it was a whole combination of things.
Yes.
I know one of
I'm
the
sorry.
things that drove civilization quicker in what we consider the old world was geography, where because the old world went from east to west for a very long way. So plants that would grow well in, say, Western Europe would still grow well in Western Asia. That was as long as they were around the same latitude and longitude. And if you look at a map of the Americas, it's mostly north and south. So you didn't have that same ability for that to happen. Also, the old world had better pack animals that we didn't have in the new world, and that really drove civilization a lot there too. And as far as people wanting to get back to the simple way of life, I think that's still a lot of people want to do that. I think we see that all the time. People wanting simple, small houses or move out to the woods and live off the land.
Yeah, I agree. That's just if you're happy and you have enough, there's really no need to try and have more than enough in many cases. So.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about the high population and the different needs.
Mm-hmm. And the needs of wheels that are made out of stone and wood, they have needs too. All kinds of things I think come into play. There's a really good book called Sapiens that talks about how the spread of civilization follows the spread of grain, and how grain kind of spreads throughout the world. And that's kind of an interesting little concept too, is, you've got to have a food source that can produce abundant amounts of food. And rice produces the most, but it's the hardest to produce because of the rice paddies and things like that, whereas grain will grow almost anywhere if it's got the right soil conditions, et cetera. So you can get grains, not just wheat grain, but grains in general to grow all around the world. And if that is true, that civilization follows grains, because grains give you a lot of food to produce so that you can focus on other things, and you can allow people to specialize in trades and things like that. So if you're a nomadic tribe, every potential hunter has to go hunt, because hunting's not a sure thing. Whereas then you have gatherers, and gatherers also not a sure thing. So those are all things I think. Read the book Sapiens. I think that might give you some really cool stuff to look at and to think about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think, Thumper?
You've given me a lot to think about, and I really admire you guys a lot, and I hope to speak to you again sometime.
Thanks, so do we.
All right, thanks. Thank you for calling. I appreciate it. And we have one more super chat that we should get to. It comes from Quantum Answer, new member, and they sent 200 Czech kroners, maybe?
Huh?
Maybe? I'm not sure. If you could, how would you limit misinformation spreading on the internet? By education, how to properly search information, or process of labeling non-scientific content, prioritizing valid information in search, a mix or other way?
Good question.
The first time I was ever on an ACA show, I said we needed to have peer review of the internet. So and I'm still of that opinion. So
Yeah. So I think the problem is that you have to balance free speech, which I'm in favor of, within limitations. You can't go running around, screaming fire in a theater. You can't create panic and fear just to create panic and fear. So there's some caveats in there, but in general, I'm a free speech. So you have to balance someone's free speech with the ability to say stupid stuff. And I'm not sure that I'm in favor of actually doing that. Now, the reason why is we tried just laughing at Nazis. We tried just laughing at bigots, and we still have them. Right, the 60s were a long time ago, and these people still exist, and they appear to have come to have more power than we thought they did. And I think it's because we made their topics taboo. So I don't think we need to make topics taboo. I do think that it starts at school. It starts at teaching people critical thinking. But I don't know that that's the complete answer, because I know too many people who made straight A's in school and didn't know a thing. I had a coworker that way. I went to school with them. They made straight A's. I'm a C student because I get bored easily, but they're a straight A student. And when they came to work with me, I still knew more about computer science and software development than they did. And I tried to talk to them, and we had just gone through systems analysis and design, and I tried to use systems analysis and design to explain what was going on, and they didn't remember a thing. And that was 2 weeks prior. You know, once the final was done, they were done, and they didn't remember anything. It was just rote memorization, and that's not learning. More power to them for doing it, but that's still not learning. It's not being able to synthesize or to extrapolate from what you were taught. So I'm not sure what the problem is. Better humans.
Better humans. Educate. I don't know what else to say other than that. Just go out there. You got to educate people. It seems like we're not getting anywhere, but we really are. You know, we have a much smarter society. We have much smarter, better people today than we had 200 years ago. So, I mean, even though it seems like you're not getting anywhere, we really are. So that's my thing is to say is just go out there and educate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have time for one more call. I think we're going to take Alfonso from Washington. He's no pronouns, disappointed when discovered there are a lot of different stories similar to Jesus' story. So, oops, hit the wrong button almost, and almost dropped him. Hi, Alfonso, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing okay.
Alfonso?
Oh, yeah.
Can you turn your volume up, Alfonso?
Yeah, let me give it a shot here.
You're much better now.
Sure are. Thank you.
All right. Yes. So yeah, I grew up a Christian and became an atheist, and I always preached, or I still always believe that what Jesus taught is like still good stuff from the Bible. And it was a little bit disappointing when I discovered that it's been shown that there over like about Christ's time, over about 100-year time, that there were several prophets that, you know, were born of a virgin, that turned water into wine, that did these different miracles, and that they kind of melded together into that Christ really maybe wasn't even a thing. And so that was always kind of, I guess, a bit of a disappointment for me, because he was my favorite part of the Bible.
Yeah, I think it depends
like
on
Apollonius of Tyana.
Say that again.
Apollonius of Tyana. He was another person that was supposedly around right about the same time as Jesus, maybe a few years afterwards, a little bit farther north in Asia Minor. But a lot of the same miracles that are attributed to Christ, he supposedly did as well. So that's why I was wondering if you were talking about maybe him as one of the people.
Yeah, I haven't heard that specifically, but yeah, I'm actually curious about that. I'm going to look him up.
And when you say similar, there's so many different ways you could talk about how two things are similar. I'll give you an example. There's a movie, great movie by Kurosawa, called Yojimbo. And the premise of the movie is a lone samurai walks into a village that has two warring families on either side, and he plays them both off and ends up making some money, and the good guys win, and on and on. Now, this, like a lot of Kurosawa's films, has been remade in a number of ways. So one of them is A Fistful of Dollars, and it's basically the same, except it's set in the West, and it's a gunslinger. And then you have Last Man Standing, which is set in the 20s, and it's two warring gangster families. So in those cases, you have a lot of similarity. The plots are the same, almost scene for scene, but some of the details change. So there's that kind of similarity. And then there's a similarity where you can go, oh, look, they're chasing a what's-it, just like they did in this other movie where they chased a what's-it, what we call tropes. And so you can go to, I think it's tvtropes.com, and look up a bunch of different tropes and put together some really, really cool stories just based on common tropes. So when you say similar, do you mean an exact copy, like in the case of Yojimbo and other movies like that, or do you mean they just have similar themes?
I'm gonna have to find the last person that I heard from this, but it was kind of a fad. At that time, there was a lot of these cults, these small cults that were popping up around that period. And so there was these little prophets that, would have a few hundred followers. And there was kind of the similarity. And they all started to kind of merge towards this singular God as well, and which was kind of popular. It showed that, wow, this guy's more powerful than all the gods that I had. And so it became a fad that kind of stuck. And then eventually we kind of ended with what we have now of these stories compiled together to make a one person. And it's
right.
just an interesting kind of perspective that I thought on that.
Yeah, there's lots of stories have similar tropes, similar themes to each other, and that's just part of storytelling. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not right or they're not true, right? The movie Apollo 13 has a lot of tropes in it as well, but it doesn't mean Apollo 13 didn't happen. So there's a difference between these two things. So that's something to think about too, is it doesn't necessarily mean it's false. But if it's a super common trope, then you have to wonder, where does that come from? Is it really true, or is it something that actually happened? And it is a common trope that, we have to fiddle with the technology to get it to work, right? That's a common trope in a lot of science fiction science fiction stories. So, yeah, you got to be careful with saying just because it has common tropes that the movie is false or the story is false. It's not necessarily the same.
A good example. I like that.
Yeah. So, you go to tvtropes.com and you can look up narrative tropes. And we can look at characters, and we have hero tropes. And we have, let's do D through F and see what we can find for tropes. Oh yeah, here we go. Damsel in distress. Dark is not evil. Dark magical girl. Dark shepherd. Defends against their own kind. Delightful dragon. Designated hero. Destroy the villain's weapon. That is something that actually happened, right? Destroy the villain's weapon. Hitler was trying to make atomic bombs, and we tried to stop that. That's a trope. Doesn't mean we didn't. Doesn't mean Hitler didn't have a weapon that we were trying to actually destroy. So, yeah, just lots of things in there. When you start looking through it, you can see these different things that come up in stories all the time. So yeah, it is kind of disappointing in a way, but it's also not exactly a knock against the story, because we do it all the time, but also real happenings have, sometimes things are common because they actually happen, and so we're familiar with it. Sometimes things happen just because it is something we're familiar with. Like when you watch Star Wars, you ever notice that when a droid goes to talk, they raise an antenna comes out of their head? Why? We don't have antennas coming out of our phones anymore. Why? Why did phones for a really long time have non-working antennas? Because everybody thought they had to pull the antenna out from back when we did have to pull the antenna out. So that's now a common trope. And it signals that, oh, hey, this communication is happening. They're talking to somebody over radio, right? It becomes a symbol for that, which is why we've got the save symbol's a floppy disk. Well, technically it's not, it's a 3.5 inch anyway. So yeah, again, just keep that in mind. Tropes don't necessarily mean the story's not true, but it also depends on how closely it follows, right? And that's why I brought up the Yojimbo thing, is because Yojimbo is not a true story, but it follows very, very closely along. You know, the remakes follow very closely to the original plot, but they're not quite the same. So it depends on how close you want to get.
Good stuff. Yeah, no,
and you see a lot of you'll see a lot of the same stories, even in cultures that didn't even have contact with each other. Some of the South American, the native South American stories are the same as stories from Europe or Africa or Asia. Mm-hmm. And these are just common human desires that are expressed through fiction, basically. So I think that's where you get a lot of this too. So.
Wonderful. Yeah, I just wanted to add before I get off that I think we are in a great direction, Kelley. We were talking about how progress. I think this generation we have now is way far ahead from what we could imagine, and just how their beliefs and all that stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to add that to that. And thanks for letting me call in.
Yeah, I find it heartening. So yeah, I thank you, Thumper. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. And if you don't mind, I am going to let you go, and we will end the show here coming up. We have one super chat I want to do real quick for Not Your Echo Chamber for $1.99. Silent farts and pews, all was calm, not for long. Said we knew everything, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we did. So I got a note saying, don't go to the crew cam. I don't know why, but hey, crew, we love you anyway. So,
absolutely. Thanks for letting us just sit here and babble.
Yeah, making us look good, making me look good anyway, like a real person. And I want to thank Jim for being here. You were awesome, man. I was really kind of nervous, kind of doing a show with you, but you're freaking amazing, and I love.
Oh, thank you.
So
yeah,
thank you so
this
much.
is fun. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, totally. I'm looking forward to it now. And then for you people watching us, you can stick around because we are going to be hanging out in the Atheist Community at Discord after show. So join us there at tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And I think that's about it, except for one thing. We want the truth. The prompt for this week is, what is something that is immoral but culturally accepted? Give us your best answers. We'll read the top 3 next week on the show. And always remember, keep wanting the truth.
Watch the non-profits and join the hosts in the live chat. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.